The House of Representatives have resolved to probe the utilization of funds allocated to states through the Federal Account Allocation Committee. This resolution was a motion of urgent public importance moved by Adeseye on Wednesday during plenary. Well, the House mandated its committees on special duties, national planning and economic development, and intergovernmental affairs to look into state spending and the utilization of the increased allocation from FAAC. The former president of the Committee for the Defense of Human Rights, Malachy Ugwumadu, well, he joins us now, discussing the moves by the House of Representatives to probe the utilization of the FAAC revenue allocations by state governments and exactly how legal this is. Thank you once again for joining us here on Newsday.
Thank you for the opportunity. Good afternoon, viewers.
Good afternoon. Well, to my understanding, the lawmakers might have a bit of a hard time going about probing the utilization of these FAAC funds due to the fact that state governments are not accountable to federal lawmakers. What do you make of this, and how do you see them navigating?
Well, I feel your observations are very correct. They are right on point. If we are thinking about federalism as a concept of governance or government, then what the members of the National Assembly are thinking about will be far-fetched, in my view. I say this because the whole concept of federalism recognizes the juxtaposition of power, state power, at different tiers of government, insisting on their autonomy. That is important. So it emphasizes that there is a central government that deals with a whole lot of gamut of issues that has applicability and common concern to the entity, the political entity. It reserves the autonomy to federating units to be able to deal with independent and selected issues. So if my analogy is right, then to what extent would the National Assembly be able to go right into the affairs of the state government without clear constitutional empowerment to do that? That, for me, is where they're getting it wrong. But I recognize that they may be as concerned as every member of the society regarding the transparency and accountability level of state governments with respect to allocations from FAC. It stops there. It doesn't vest them with the capacity, that is the legal capacity, to interrogate further. In short, if they try it, take it from me that they will harvest a lot of legal actions. What I mean by that is suits, and this will go straight to the Supreme Court, because once it involves the federal government and the state, it moves straight to the Supreme Court, or as case stated. Now, I want to also make the point that under the Constitution, the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended, as we have it today, the National Assembly can, in few instances, dabble into the affairs of the state government by way of legislations. And I remember vividly, under state of emergency, for instance, Section 305. But that power to legislate for the affected state is limited only to the extent that they can go for good governance and peace and order of that state. They cannot go into the finances, they cannot go into appropriation, they cannot go into every other aspect of the life of those states. If you go to Section 11, for instance, you will also find an instance in which the National Assembly can make laws for the state. But none of these sections gives them the right to begin to query the financial dealings, appropriations of the state government. If you allowed it, then we're throwing overboard the whole business of federalism. I recognize that we're practicing more of regional government, unitary system of government, as opposed to the federal system of government professed by our constitution. The constitution says Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. But like I keep saying, the robe does not make the monk. It is immaterial whether the constitution is captured, Constitution of Federal. What indeed is being practiced is what matters. And I think it is drawing from this, carries on that you now begin to see members of the National Assembly who should know or ought to know begin to make such proposal. My final conclusion on this is that it may be well-intentioned, drawing from their representative capacity as people who represent constituencies within the same states that they seek to monitor. However, legally, as the Constitution stands today, they cannot. And that's my view.
No, but it's ironical, isn't it, if the lawmaking arm of government does not even know when it's overreaching its powers. That's quite, I really don't know the word to use to describe it. But then in any case, a lot of people do agree that the states actually should be monitored regarding how they utilize these FAC allocations. So I'm wondering then, if the House of Assembly cannot get involved in this probe, can the law enforcement agencies do that? So
let's decongest this thing, because it looks a bit congested. And I'm happy with your concern. It goes back or speaks to the need for a functional legislature, that is the state houses of assembly. And make no mistake about it, the National Assembly has right to oversight any person, any agency, every institution of government to which they can make law. Any such agency, any such body affected by the laws that they make, they can oversight, no doubt about that. But I've drawn a distinction between that and the government of subnational states, talking about states constituting the federation. They cannot. Once you dabble into that, you are removing from this whole business of governance the element of federalism. It doesn't work any longer. So your concern speaks to the need for a functional legislature at state level. In short, I have had repeated quarrels with some friends of mine, particularly in the state where I come from, where I ask, how is the government doing? And they are the first to rise in praise of those state government. And I keep wondering, for 8 years, I've not heard you raise some resentment, some concerns about the operation of the executive. What that tells me is that your responsibility to check the excesses of the executive is completely forgotten. Now, the point I make is that if you have a functional state houses of assembly, they are on their own enough check to the utilization of those facts. But more importantly, the reason why we talk of an egalitarian society that has a robust civil society is for issues such as this. Indeed, I know in Nigeria some organizations that are completely devoted and dedicated to budgeting and budgetary processes. In short, we encourage our members not just to stop there, but to track and monitor the implementation of these budgets. In 2009, I remember, I had cause to take the government to court, Federal High Court. I'm talking of the federal government, and we were before Justice Okechukwu. I must mention that name. He was at the departure lounge, about to retire. And he kept asking me why I was so bothered about this. I said, my Lord, the budget is called the budget. It is actually an act, appropriation act. I don't have the understanding that you can pick and choose the aspect of an act to obey. So the whole business of the budget was performing only 10%, 35%, 20%, doesn't make any sense to me. As far as I was concerned, once the Appropriation Act or bill had been assented to and become an act, it is the responsibility of the government to ensure full implementation of that act for the benefit of the people. So the civil society should rise up to the occasion. Ensure there are known civil society organizations in this country completely dedicated to issues of budget and budgeting processes. They must be able to take on some of these aspects and highlight these concerns that the National Assembly, because indeed they can't go more than the observations they have made. And I'm happy it's about resolution, or, they can't go more than that. If they did, there will be clear legal actions over which the judiciary will have the opportunity to determine it one way or the other.
Well, former president of the Committee of Defense for Human Rights, Malachy, it's always great to have you in our studio. Thank you so much for having this very important discussion with us.
Thank you for the opportunity. I'm grateful.